Hello again. So this is episode 1 of my mental health blog. Um, I did a video a month or so ago, which was an introduction to me. Told you basically my life story. But now I'm going to go into subjects in each episode. So I thought that I'd start off with everyone's favourite subject, abusive relationships. So there's that for you. So, as I told you in my introduction video, I was in quite an abusive relationship with a guy from 2017 to 2018. I won't say his name. He's probably watching this and he knows who he is. So I just wanted to talk about that and how it's affected me, really, and how my sort of opinion on how to deal with it. Okay, so I met my ex-boyfriend in August 2017. I was in Cheltenham as a student, and he moved up. Well, he didn't move up. He was working for a chain restaurant which opened up a Cheltenham branch, and they needed workers, and he came from the Bath one, which is in Somerset. I met him on Grindr. I was very hungover after going out with one of my best friends, Shannon. Shout out to Shannon because I know she's watching this. Hello, Shannon. So I went out with Shannon, had a cracking night as always, and Shannon was letting me sleep on her sofa, which is usual because she'd always sleep on my sofa, even though she lived 10 minutes down the road. So anyway, I was on her sofa, being hungover. She was at work, and I was bored. So I fired up the old Grindr, as you do, and I messaged this guy and I was like, I'm bored, do you want to go for coffee? I didn't think that he would say yes, because if you know me, I literally get ignored on Grindr. If I don't get called ugly on Grindr, I get told I've got a big nose, I get told I'm too skinny, I get told I'm too blonde, or I just get told to fuck off. So I didn't think anything would come of it. I was just, hungover, and I was like, yeah, fancy a coffee, whatever. And he did. He said, yeah. So I was 15 minutes late. I said that I'd meet him at, I think it was like 1:30. Ended up being there at like 10 to 2. Strolled in to Cafe Nero with my coat. Still feeling a bit shaky, thinking absolutely nothing of it. I thought, right, he's going to come for a coffee, take one look at my hungover ass and think, nah, you can fuck off. But we got talking, and then we went to Patisserie Valerie, where we had, I think, like a sandwich or something I needed to eat, otherwise I was going to vom. And I don't know, we sort of had a connection. So it was really different because we went to Patisserie Valerie and then we went to his apartment. His company was paying for him to stay in an apartment or something. Yeah. And then we sort of cuddled. We cuddled and we watched TV. We watched Disney films because I love Disney. And he liked Disney. So we watched a few films and then we started texting each other. Anyway, I went back to Telford for the summer to work because I used to work for a catering agency, and I used to do the July course. So I used to travel around London doing the race courses. So I went back, and one night I was having a few drinks with everyone who worked with me, and I found his Facebook, and he was engaged, and I thought, right. So I looked at this partner he had, who was considerably older. I won't mention his name either. So I stopped texting him for a few days, and when I came back to Cheltenham, I sort of saw him and I questioned him about it. And he spun me this whole story of, oh, well, we're splitting up, it's not working with us. I hate him, he's this, he's that. I'm falling for you, you're the only one. And obviously, me being a silly dickhead, I was like, yeah, woo, that's great. So I took his word for it, and long story short, we were texting, and it turned out that I got my third year uni house and he was looking for a place to stay in Cheltenham because he decided he wanted to work full time in Cheltenham and be with me. So Mr. Great Idea over here goes, why don't you move in with me for 6 months and then move into your own place, and then after that I can move in with you. Don't know why I did that. But anyway, so he moved into my student house. This was after about 4 weeks of knowing the guy. So yeah, that's a lesson learnt. Anyway, it was all good for about 2 weeks, and then it just went downhill. He was drinking quite a lot. He was also texting this guy. I nearly tripped over and said his name, so I'm just going to call him 55-year-old man. He may not be accurately 55, but I know he's in his 50s, but I will call him 55-year-old because that's how I explain it. So he had a message from the 55-year-old, and I said to him, why don't you just show me? Because you told me you hate him and he was abusive towards you and he threw a lamp at you or something. If he's giving you grief, pass him to me and I'll tell him where to go. And he deleted the messages right in front of me. And then told me I was being paranoid. Said that I'm being too out of control with my paranoia and that there's nothing to worry about. Even though he was calling him in the middle of the night. Anyway, there was a day when he drank too much, and to say sorry, because I don't particularly like violent drunks, and he was a bit aggressive. So to say sorry, he got me flowers, but he was still drunk. Anyway, we were in bed, and in the morning, I let go of some wind. I've got IBD, so, forgive me. And he lost his shit. He flipped over and he nearly punched me. And he picked up the flowers and he started smashing them against the wall. And then he nearly picked up a chair and threw it at me and said I was disgusting, I was vile, and he wanted to get away from me. So anyway, he goes to work, and then I'm expecting him back, and he texts me going, I have had to go back to my nan's house because my nan's not very well. Now at this time, my grandmother, my granny, who I loved completely apart from my mum, more than anyone else. I was very close to my grandmother from a young age. Bearing in mind at this point, my grandmother was very ill with Alzheimer's. So he knew he could use that because I was always worried about my granny and I always went back to see her. So he used that his nan was in a bad way, and I got it all. I got, she's not going to make it, I'm worried. And he rung me and says, yeah, I'm here, I'm going to have to stay the night. You don't really need me to spell it out, but turns out he wasn't at his nan's. He was actually with the 55-year-old in Bath, sleeping in the same room, and apparently nothing went down. He told me he missed sleeping in his bed, but I said that I have a double bed, and he goes, no, I just slept in the same bed, we did nothing. I mean, that's just that. No, I'm not that thick. So yes, that was incident number one. I forgot to mention the incident. What happened before that was we were at a hotel on a romantic break, and he tells me he's dying of cancer. So as you can imagine, when I was, falling for someone and they tell you they have cancer, it kind of fucks you up a bit. And I started crying because I thought I've just met a guy who I really like, who I think likes me for me, and he's going to die. Anyway, 2 hours later, he comes back and goes, oh, I've just rung the doctor and he's told me it was a mistake. I'm fine. I haven't got cancer. This was at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I don't know many doctors who would call patients at 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, that was the incident before, and that's why I didn't like him when he drunk, because I knew he'd lie, and he had a habit of texting. 55-year-old man. He had a habit of texting him and ringing him when he was drunk. So I had aversions to him drinking, and I was like, I'd rather you not drink. So that's why he got me the flowers. And anyway, there was another incident where we went to Cardiff. I wanted to go to Cardiff because I'm a massive Doctor Who fan. And he liked Cardiff. So I said, let's go to Cardiff so I can see where they filmed Doctor Who. You can, do your usual Cardiff things. And that turned out to be an absolute disaster because he got drunk again. He lashed out in the morning and got violent. And he ditched me and said that he's leaving me. So I had to walk home to the train station on my own. I get to the train station and he's there in tears. He's drunk. And he says, I've got no money. I've wasted it on alcohol. Can you buy me a train ticket home? So I did. We went out for dinner, and that was about the only romantic thing what happened. Anyway, long story short, the place he took me was the place he took 55-year-old man to. So I just went to their old stomping ground. We got back. Obviously, I wasn't happy. The drinking just got worse. One night, he started calling me a lot of names, and I flinched up and I went, get out my house. And then he tried to headbutt me, and then he punched me, and then he picked up a wooden chair and threw it all over me. And I obviously retaliated back because I wasn't having that. And then the next day he apologized and he said he was going to stop drinking. The next day he came home drunk, had an argument with me, and said the only reason he is texting his ex-boyfriend, partner, fiance, is because of their dog, who I won't name because it's quite obvious, but the dog was named after a flower, and I don't like those flowers anymore because of this. And I simply just said, why are you so bothered about it? Referring to the dog, because I was like, you're drinking. And basically he told me that his dog was like his daughter and he loved his dog as much as he loved me, and that if he could marry his dog, he would. And I called her an it, and he threw me against the wall and lamped me in the face. And then I had to sleep on my own sofa because he played the victim card and saying, you're abusing me, you're saying this about my dog, I moved here for you, this is your house, but I moved here for you, I'm here only because of you, and you can't kick me out. So I had to sleep on I had to sleep on my own sofa. And the next morning he was very frosty with me. He was just basically like, I don't think I can do this with you. I don't think there's anything between us. And then he left me for work, and then I went to work. I used to work at a candle shop. probably the most infamous candle shop there is. And he rung me saying, I'm leaving you, that's it, we're done. And then I just completely panic. I run out of work, crying, to find him in my own house, packing up his stuff. And I beg him, and I was like, please don't leave me. Looking back, I really should have told him to do one. I really should have said, look, there's the door, bye. But at the time, he was telling me that I was an abuser. I was abusing him. I was hurting him. I was, ruining his life. He moved here for me, and he's got nothing without me. And then he disappears for 2 hours, and he comes back drunk, saying he loves me, saying that he forgives me for everything I've done. And obviously at this point, I'm just like, okay, I'm forgiven. Fine, I'll just take what he's saying to me. And then I tell him to stop drinking, and he says he's not an alcoholic. He is a binge addict. So he told me that he's not going to stop drinking. He's just going to do it in moderation. And as it's nearly Christmas, he will be drinking quite a lot. So I had to deal with that. Anyway, he goes to see his dad for Christmas lunch in Bath, or Bath, as he used to say. That's another thing he used to abuse me on, is my accent, because apparently I sound like a northerner. And he had this extravagant posh accent because he was like the celebrity of Bath. Everyone loved him. And he used to call me a dirty northerner because I used to say, are you going to Bath? And he goes, it's Bath, not Bath. Anyway, sorry. But so he went to see his dad in Bath, and he was going to come back to Cheltenham and be with me. And I was quite nervous because I thought, well, 55-year-old is in Bath, and I'm here. And he was like, look, I've bought my dad an Amazon Fire Stick, I'm giving it to him, we're having dinner, and then I'm coming back to you. I only want to be with you, I love you. So I was reassured. It gets to 11 o'clock, and he says, oh, my nan's been taken ill again. At this point, I didn't know what to believe. He was drunk again. And he came back afternoon the next day. Again, I'm not gonna stretch this out. He was with the 55-year-old man, and the Amazon Fire Stick was for him, not his dad. It got to Christmas. I actually went back to see... No, it was Christmas, and he was stopping in my house whilst I went back to see my family for Christmas. And he was supposed to meet my parents on Boxing Day. And surprise, surprise, he didn't answer the phone until 2 minutes before we arrived at the house. And he was hungover and smelt of red wine. And there were 3 empty bottles underneath the bed. So yeah, I'm with my parents, who I came out to them quite a while ago, but I do feel quite uncomfortable talking about my sexuality with them. But this was an opportunity for me to show that I do have someone who I love and who loves me. We may be 2 men, but we work. That was not the case. He was completely hammered. He was still hammered. I mean, he says he was hungover, but he was still hammered. You could smell it on his breath. So we had dinner with my parents. And my mum even said to me, I can smell wine on his breath. It's so pungent. So Christmas left. And then I said to him, right, it's a new year. We were going into 2018. I said, it's a new year. You stop your drinking, and I will try my best not to be jealous of 55-year-old man. I'm so close to saying his name, and it's really embarrassing. Because I know if I say his name, he'll be on my Facebook and I'll have all of his friends come at me. I would have had... Anyway, I've forgotten where I was. Jesus Christ. I said, I will try, New Year, you stop your drinking. I will try and stop being so paranoid over 55-year-old. And it was great. So I told him we can celebrate the new year. He can get a bottle of champagne and then we'll go to bed. He came back with a bottle of champagne and 2 bottles of wine. And by the end of the night, I only had 2 glasses of champagne and he had the rest. So he woke up New Year's Eve hungover. So 2 days after New Year's Eve, so on the 2nd, I saw him like and comment on the 55-year-old's Instagram. Now, bearing in mind, he told me that this 55-year-old was abusive and threw lamps at him and he hated him and he was only talking to him because of his dog. But he was still messaging him on Facebook. He was still liking his stuff on Instagram and he was still messaging him on Instagram as well. And he was still calling him. So I questioned him about it and he got violent. He called me a psycho. He called me jealous. And then he did his usual thing of lashing out at me, hitting me, and then getting drunk and then falling to pieces and crying on my shoulder. He then told me that he was only with this 55-year-old because he has daddy issues, and that he never loved this 55-year-old and he only loves me, and that I'm the only one he wants to be with. That to me was a turning point because I thought, okay, so he's actually opened up a bit now. But again, 2 days later, he was back to calling 55-year-old. He was back to hiding things from me. And we split up. He sat in my living room and he smashed. Basically, I found a bottle of alcohol underneath the bed. I found a bottle of alcohol in my drawer. And I found 4 bottles of wine stashed on the floor. Because this was also the time where I had to nip back to Telford because unfortunately my grandmother was declining quite fast. So I nipped back quickly to see her because I didn't want to not see her and then have to go back for the last minute. I wanted to see her as much as I could. So I went back very early New Year's, and he was drunk and whatever, and there were bottles everywhere, and he smashed a bottle in my living room and said that I was a slag, said that I was worth nothing to him, and that 55-year-old was better than me in every single way I could imagine, and that there was nothing between us ever. And I said, fine, where are you going? And he told me he was going to stay with his parents, but obviously he was with 55-year-old in Bath again. Anyway, he comes back and he spills me all this bullshit saying that he missed me, that I'm the only one for him, that there is something between us. And I fell for it because, I don't know, I was probably lonely at the time. So I fell for his lies and I took him back. And then within a few weeks, he was back to drinking, and back to being his usual self. We had a couple of rough few weeks where he was drinking a lot. It got to a point where I got a phone call about Granny, and it's looking like it's a month. So I went back and I came back about a few days later thinking that my partner at the time would have been there to support me, because seeing someone you love die is not nice. Anyway, I walk in at 11 o'clock in the morning and he's been sick on the floor. And he blamed it on me, saying that I abandoned him for my grandmother and that 55-year-old abused him and that he would never ever think that I'd ditch him, but for my grandmother I've ditched him. Which I said, my grandmother is 90 years old. Sorry. Yeah. My grandmother's 90 years old and I've known her for all my life, and, you've been abusing me. But again, it was my fault. I ditched him. I left him on his own in a place he didn't know. And then it transpired that he went back to Bath again when I left him. And then it just got to a point where it got to about March time, and I said, look, enough's enough. You're going back to Bath so many times. You're sleeping in the same bedroom as your ex. You're in the same place. You're at a gay bar and you're an alcoholic with men. He used to tell me all the time that 55-year-olds used to offer him sex. One of his excuses was, I don't know why you're so paranoid, Andrews, because when I went back, he offered me sex, saying, if you want to come upstairs, we'll shag. And I said, no, you should feel grateful because I chose you. And I said that you should just not see him. He's your ex. You should just cut him out of your life. And that was me being paranoid, apparently. That was me creating situations in my head. He was like, I can text him, I can ring him all I want, I can spend as much time with him as I can. And I said, you can, but he's offering you sex. He still has feelings for you. He still has photos of you on his Facebook. You still have photos of when you went to Italy together, when you went to Sitges together. What's that about? You say he abused you. You say you hate him, and yet you have all of these memories and you won't delete them. I looked in his bag because I was trying to control his drinking, because I wanted him to get better, because I loved him, not because I'm a control freak. Anyway, I found a card his ex sent him in his bag saying that I love you, I want to take you to Italy. And then I got the blame for that as well. I shouldn't have been going through his bag. I'm just jealous. I'm being paranoid again, even though his ex is saying that he still loves him. It's all my fault. So it got to March and we split up, and I said, enough is enough. I can't do it anymore. And he gets drunk, and I get a phone call in the middle of the night, and he says he's been raped. So I let him stay at mine because I'm like, what? Anyway, the next day he goes, no, nothing happened. I was too drunk. I'm sorry. So typical, I nearly said his name then, typical his behaviour. He had cancer I had it 5 times. It was, I have cancer, cancer's back, they've found cancer, I might have cancer, and the cancer looks like it's spread. And I had that 5 times when he was drunk. So I sort of went through that 5 times, and then he told me he was raped. And then it turns out he was lying, and he told me that it was my fault. He said that I wanted to get you back. So I lied, and I said that to get you back. And that was my fault that he lied about being raped. So he made me feel guilty. He made me feel like I'm the bad guy. And then we were texting, and he got his own place. He got his own little pad up the road, literally up the road where I live now. And I go to see him, and he gives me a key and goes, this is for you. I want us to make a proper go of it. And he basically said that the reason why I've been so horrible to you is because we've been living in a small space, and we've been living in your house, not mine. I need more control. So I fell for that again because I'm a silly bint. And within 3 days of him moving into that flat, he was fired from his job for drinking, which he blamed me for as well. Yeah, that was my fault. I drunk because of you. You're putting too much pressure on me. I miss my dog. You won't let me see my dog. Because I wouldn't let him text his ex, and I wouldn't let him ring his ex, because I don't want a 55-year-old grown-ass man, sorry, before I get really angry, I don't want a grown-ass 55-year-old in my business. I was 22 at the time. I didn't want a 55-year-old man with grandkids and children older than me, and even my boyfriend, in my life. So I said, if you need to see your dog, you text him and you say, come and drop her off here. Don't ring him in the middle of the night. Don't text him in the middle of the night. Don't like his stuff on Instagram. You don't have to. Regardless as to whether you don't like him, you have a new boyfriend you're trying to grow a life with, and you're still up his fucking arsehole Why? Anyway, I got all, it's your fault, you're making it up in your heads, there's nothing going on. Even though he says he still wants to shag me, I'm not going to do it because I want you, and you should get over that and you should accept it. So I got the blame for him drinking at work. So I had to pay £50 towards his rent because he lost his job. Anyway, he then came to me one night and said that he is an alcoholic and he wants to quit. And I was obviously apprehensive, and I was just like, do you really, or what? And he says, no, I want to quit. I love you. And I said, I'm going to help you. So I pledged to him that I would stay with him and I wouldn't leave him, because I didn't want to leave someone who was an alcoholic. I didn't want to be the one who left someone who was so down and so depressed and such a mess, because I know that if I got in that situation, I would want someone with me. I would want someone to take care of me and to love me. And I thought, I'm not going to be the one to leave an alcoholic on his own. So I moved in with him. God, it's like welcome to another episode of Let's Ruin Your Life. Yeah, so I moved in with him, and we slept on like this lie-low for about 4 weeks because we were both skinned as shit. It was sort of cute because it was like we were building a home. You know, my parents, to be honest, were probably more of a boyfriend to me than he was, because they bought most of the stuff, what was in the flat. They bought the bed. Yeah. No, they bought the bed and everything. So it was fine for a few weeks, to be honest. It was like he stopped drinking. Anyway, try to say this without getting emotional, because I don't want to look even more stupid on camera by crying like an absolute tit. It's spring 2018, and I get a call from my mum in tears saying that my granny is going to die in 48 hours. So I left Cheltenham to go home and see my family and to see my grandmother when she was dying. And so obviously I had to deal with watching her die, and that was just an awful experience. Anyway, I came back because he was saying that he missed me. And surprise, surprise, after I come back, after I've been to the funeral, after I've had such an emotional week of watching a grandparent die, going to the funeral, seeing my mum in bits, seeing my dad in bits, I come home and he is on the floor surrounded by alcohol bottles, and he lashes out at me and he says that he hates me for leaving him. How dare I leave him? It's all my fault. And then he shows me a text message, and it's from the 55-year-old man. And he goes, this is your fault. You left me on my own for a week. I had to text him because I was so lonely. I missed you, but I couldn't get a hold of you. So I text him and I went, my grandmother has just passed away. And he goes, yeah, and you abandoned me. You abandoned me. You say you love me and you abandoned me. How dare you do that to me, Andrew? I've done this. This is all your fault. And he points to the bottles and he says, this is all of your fault. And he picks up, and I remember it was a Budweiser bottle, and he smashes it on the floor and he screams in my face and calls me a monster. So that was difficult. So I sort of had to put grieving for my grandmother on the back burner, because I was like, right, I've got a screaming alcoholic in my face. So anyway, he runs off and he basically goes back to Bath again. But by this time, I've got no energy. I've just watched my grandmother die, and I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not going to waste. So I let him do it. I let him be with this 55-year-old guy. If he wanted to sleep with him, fine. I'm going to grieve for my grandmother. Anyway, 2 days passed and he was back. And he was drunk again. And then it got to a point where, you know, I said to him, look, my grandmother's just died. You've screamed at me. Are you going to stop drinking? And he says, yes, I'm going to stop drinking. I will finally do it for you. And we had this massive eruption of violence. You know, in the middle of the night, he called his ex's name out. And I said, you've just said his name. And then he punched me and he goes, you're making up in your head. How dare you? And then he picks up the bed and then rips all of the slats out and throws them at me and throws them across the room. And then I said, I'm sorry. And maybe you didn't. He did. He said his ex's name twice. But I said he didn't just to calm him down because I wasn't having it. I'm still trying to get over Granny going. And he's screaming. And I said, look, this needs to stop. You're drunk again. Because the week before was an awful week. It was my birthday and I go on a night out with my friends and he basically said, I don't want you going out like that. Because I wore a black vest with slit sides because I've got a Cruella de Vil tattoo and then another tattoo here. I wanted to show off my tattoos with all my other tattoos. But he goes, you look like a slag. I'm not having you go out looking like that. Lord knows who you're going to pick up. And I said to him, but it's okay for you to go to Bath where your 55-year-old ex is offering you sex and you're sleeping in the same bed as him. Yeah, but that's different. We're just friends. And I said, well, no, it's not, because you're going somewhere where there are a lot of gay men who drink a lot and who have sex a lot, because he used to tell me all the stories about this gay bar he used to run with this 55-year-old. I mean, good God, it's enough to make an angel swear. So I was concerned about that. Anyway, he called me a slag on my birthday and I went out and had a good night. Anyway, I come back, he's drunk and he proposes to me with no ring. I mean, look, I'm not going to lie, it was my birthday. I had a few drinks. I was with Shannon, again, hi Shannon. And I said yes. Again, how to ruin your life in 20 seconds, me, here we go. So I said yes. Anyway, that week, I'd wake up to go to work every day and I'd find a bottle of wine fall out of the cabinet. I'd look for the towels underneath the sink and there would be a bottle of wine, an empty bottle of wine. There'd be whiskey bottles, there'd be Budweiser bottles. And I just got sick of it. I said, I can't do this. And anyway, I got the blame for him being an alcoholic and him hitting me and it's all your fault. You neglect me. That's why I lash out. And I kind of grew some bollocks. I said, no, it's not. It's your fault. And I got really tough on him. I said, right, that's it. You're not drinking anymore. That flat out, you are not drinking. Because we had 2 young cats. Because we were supposed to start a family. God. Sorry, it sounds so stupid. Why would you want to start a family with someone who does that to you? Anyway, I wanted to start a family. We were going to move into a nice house. So we got 2 cats. And we had this little unit. And I said, look, we've got 2 cats. If you drink, you need to go. You need to leave the house because you're going to scare them. He didn't do that. He got drunk most nights. And then one night he said he was going out for milk. And he came back, his receipt dropped out of his pocket and he downed a whole bottle of wine within 10 minutes. I got the blame for that. Anyway, it got to a point where I went to see Mamma Mia 2 with one of my friends. I can never watch that film again because it holds bad memories. Not just because of the abysmal acting and it doesn't have Meryl Streep in it much, but, you know, hey-ho. Me and one of my dearest friends went to see Mamma Mia 2 together. And I was worried about coming back because I thought he'd be drunk. Even though we sorted it out for the 17th time and he wasn't going to drink, I was still worried. And she did offer to come in and I said, no, it'll be fine. Anyway, I go in and there are 7 little cans of Gordon's tonic and gin and 5 bottles of Budweiser. And he's drunk. And he's passed out on the bed and I wake him up and I went, what's going on? and he screams in my face and says, "It's all your fault. You didn't invite me. You didn't invite me to the cinema. I'm like this because of you. Everything I've done to you is your fault. Every time I drink, it's your fault. I've done this to you. I do that to you, and you don't give me respect. You need to give me some respect." I lost it. So I picked up a Budweiser bottle, and he was sitting on the toilet, rambling on about how, I'm off to work now. It was literally like 10:30 at night, and he finished work at 5, and he was like, I'm going to work. And I went, "Why are you drunk?" And I always remember he always used to say, yeah, man, why is the grass green? Why is there concrete on the floor? And that made me flip my shit. I turned into like Tila Tequila. Picked up the bottle and I flung it at him, and I just went, "I've had enough. Get out." And I picked him up by the scruff of his neck and I threw him out. I said, "We've got 2 young kittens there. You're pissed and you're screaming at me." And then he basically punched me. He strangled me, put me onto the bed, put his leg on my neck, spat in my face, bit me, and backhanded me. And then I pushed him off and I said, "You need to get out. This needs to stop now. I'm sick of this." He then grabs me by the hair and then he smashes my head against the kitchen cupboard, spits on my face again, said he's going to piss on me. Anyway, I push him off me and I use my leg. I'm 6'4", so I have very long legs. So I literally get my legs and I kick him right out the door. It was quite a funny moment. I mean, at the time it wasn't funny. It was a bit like a yeet moment. I yeeted him via my foot from one end of the room, right outside, down the stairs. And then I slammed the door. Anyway, he's banging on the door and he calls the police. And then his mum calls and his mum screams at me down the phone, calling me every name under the sun, saying that I'm the worst boyfriend he's ever had. I never do this for him. She even said, and I've nearly said his name again, and I really don't want to say his name. She goes, 55-year-old was better for him. He never had these problems when he was with him. Me and 55-year-old took him to Alcoholics Anonymous once, and that worked, and he was there for him. Why aren't you? So I got it in the neck from his mother. I got, "You're a bad boyfriend to my son. You never support him. You're this, you're that." And then she told me to go out. So, I didn't touch a drop of alcohol. I was crying. I was still grieving for my grandmother, and I was told by his mother that I had to go and I had to leave the house, the flat. I said to him that, right, if I'm leaving, I'm taking the cats. They're mine. My mother paid for them. I'm taking them. He nearly got aggressive again and said, "You're not taking them. They're mine. Everything in here is mine. It's not yours. You will have nothing. You deserve nothing. You deserve nothing, Andrew. I deserve everything because of what you put me through." And I'll never forget that line. I'll never forget that. After months of taking his hits physically and mentally, after being cheated on so many times, after him lying about being raped and having cancer, he tells me that I'm the one who's in the wrong. I'm the one who's not worth it. Anyway, I sort of did a bit of damage control. That's what I do best. I do damage control. So I sort of simmered down. I slept on the sofa and he slept in the bed. And then in the middle of the night, he's like, "Come cuddle me. I need to feel wanted. I need to feel love. I need this." And just to shut the guy up, I thought, right, he's over there doing his bit. He's doing all that and I can't cope with it. I need peace and quiet. So I went over and we cuddled and luckily he fell asleep. Anyway, it was then when the police officer came to the door, and then I had to go down to the police station and explain that what he did. And then he told the police that I was drunk, I was the abuser, and that I was the one who was making him drink. And the police woman turns around and says, "I could smell booze on him anyway. That's why we've not taken this further, because he reeked of booze at 9 o'clock in the morning when we interviewed him." So yeah, that's the story. It's 45 minutes. I hope you've bared with me and I hope I've not bored you to death, but that is the story of the relationship. And I just wanted to share it with you guys. And And I just wanted to know if anyone else has had that experience. It was quite a traumatic experience for me, if I'm being honest. I never really had a proper relationship before this. I've never been the type of gay to have the boyfriends and to have the luck in the world, or to have all these guys interested in me. And, you know, my first relationship was with the guy I went to school with. And to be honest, it wasn't even a bad relationship. We were just two young guys. You know, he was never abusive. He was a bit of a dick, but he was never abusive the way this guy abused me. Never. But that relationship, my first relationship, just didn't last. It was just one of those, we were both 17, we were both young. I went off to uni, he stayed in Telford. My second relationship was, again, I was in third year, this guy was in second year. No, I was in second year, he was in first year. And he was just in uni, and then he just had to leave Cheltenham because he hated uni. So, you know, I never really had long relationships. And I suppose seeing his profile with the 55-year-old, and he went on so many holidays. Like, he went to like Rome, which is in Italy. Yeah. He went to Rome, he went to Sitges, he went everywhere with this guy. And it was like, I want that. I want to go on these nice holidays with someone I love. And, you know, as much as I slag it off, you know, they did own a gay bar together, and they had so much fun. They had a dog together, they traveled together, they went to parties together, they had all these functions together. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, I was a bit like, I want a slice of that. Do you know what I mean? So I was just like, I really want a slice of that. So I convinced myself that I could make it work with him. So I saw an opportunity with this guy, and I thought that this could be something which could make it happen. You know, I've always wanted to be loved. I mean, this sounds sad. I've always wanted to have someone love me, because I've never really, really loved myself until now. Which is, I will get on that in a minute. I never really loved myself at this point, and I took it. I took his abuse because I thought that's what I was worth. I thought that being hit by him and being cheated on by him, because he cheated on me with the 55-year-old and other people, I thought I deserved it, because that's how he made me feel. I had no... There's a lot... I'm going to sound so gay when I say this, but there's a line in Katy Perry's song, and it's, I stood for nothing, but I fell for everything. But it's true. I literally stood for nothing. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was lost. And I fell for the bullshit. You know, I thought that I could make something work, and it was very evident by the third week we were dating that it was not going to work, that he was messed up, that he was an alcoholic, that he clearly had some sort of feelings for a man who was twice his age, older than his dad, with grandkids. Again, that should have been like, come on, Andrew, you know, wee woo, stop the pigeon, get away, leave. But because I didn't like myself, I fell for it. I just accepted it. I was just like, yeah, go on then. So I lay back and I took it. And looking back, I shouldn't. But because of how I felt about myself, I let it happen. And I thought that every time he said he loved me, he meant it. And, you know, being told that I was loved, even though he was absolutely 3 sheets to the wind, was quite nice for me, because I never, apart from my parents, I've never really heard the words I love you. And I suppose it got to a point where I thought, why does everyone else have that and I don't? You know, because at this point, all my friends from Telford, from school, were in relationships and were having kids. And I just thought, I need that, because it's not happening for me, and I don't know why. So I stayed with him for a year. I took the punches. I took the numerous, I have cancers. I took the because he'd said he was raped more than 3 times, which turned out to be a lie. I took it because I had no self-esteem. I had no confidence, and I was like, this is the only love I'm going to get. I'm not going to get, what he had with the 55-year-old. I'm not going to have my opportunity to go to somewhere like, I don't know, Azerbaijan or the Maldives, nice places you can go on holiday. So I just thought, this is my life. This is what I am worth. I am worth this. And I suppose there's a program called My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and it is so accurate to me. It's unreal. And because it's a sort of musical, it's like a musical type comedy show. And anyway, there's a song in, I think it's season 2 of is it Cornell's? I can't remember the bloody word. It's Cornell's or Quinnell's. No, I think Quinnell's is the one where you go like that with a spoon. Corn dogs? It's not corn. It's something like Quinnell's. No, Quizzles? I can't remember. It's like a little Quinnell of love or Quinnell of attention. It's like just search it. Just put in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend season 2 love kernels. Oh, bloody hell, finally I got there. Love kernels. And it's like every time they give you a little bit of a seasoning of I love you, you take it and you grab onto it. And that's what I was doing with him. I was taking his little bit of love kernels, and I was just running with it, like he could have, come in and shot me in the face and, pissed all over my body and set me on fire with kerosene, and then threw, I don't know, water all over me and bought me a pack of fags and a bottle of Malibu, and I would have said, oh God, you really do love me. Because that's how I was. That's how I thought, because I thought that's what I was worth. But it took me a long time to realize that I'm worth so much more than that. Like, so much more than that. And it took me a long time to accept that it was an abusive relationship. It took me a long time to actually sit down with myself and say, you were abused. It was abuse, and both physically and mentally. And it was hard. It was hard, and it has affected me, and it still affects me to this day. And I don't trust people very well, because, my ex would lie to me about everything. If you can lie to me about your grandmother dying on a deathbed when you're actually shacked up with your 55-year-old ex drinking, a bottle of wine, listening to Donna Summer in a gay bar, what else can you lie about? I don't trust very well, and I do have a lot of guards up about it. And it's sometimes hard to cope with because I don't know whether to believe people, to sort of put my defenses up or to let them down. And, when you're told, especially when you're constantly up against a 55-year-old man who is apparently a cocaine addict, who has grandchildren and throws lamps at, 26-year-old men, when you're constantly put on a level where he is, and when you're constantly compared to him, and it affects you. Like, it's not like I was compared to another blonde hair, blue eyes, 6 foot tall, skinny guy. I was compared to a 5'2" old man. Not old, but, middle-aged old. And it's sort of damaging, because it's like he chose him over me countless of times, and I was a 23-year-old guy who had so much ambition. I had a certificate from uni, and I had ambitions to do things with my life, and all I wanted to do was to build a life with someone. And you had this guy who wanted to sniff cocaine and have threesomes in hot tubs, and he was always chosen. He was always chosen over me. And yes, okay, he could say that it was his dog and he missed his dog, but it's bullshit. He liked that life. He liked being an alcoholic. He liked sleeping around, and he loved his ex. And it's taken a while for me to accept that. It's not my fault. He loves his ex-fiancée. He was engaged to his ex-fiancée for 5 years. He left university and he shacked up immediately with this guy. I've just got to accept it. You know, I convinced myself that, no, he loves me. He's moved all the way from Bath to Cheltenham for me. He loves me. He chooses me. No, he doesn't. He chooses himself. He chooses alcohol. He chooses sex. He chooses drugs. He chooses 55-year-old men. He chooses that. It's no reflection on me. It's no reflection on who I am as a person or how I look. It's about him. And it took me until a few months ago to actually truly accept that, because it's tough. Because not only was it physical, because you can hide physical. I could put on a bit of concealer if I had like a bruise or a bite mark or a backhand mark or if my head, when he smashed my head against the cupboard, I could cover that up. But you can't cover up the words. You can't cover up what he does. And, especially when my grandmother, who I love to bits, was dying of cancer in front of my own eyes, and I went back to him being drunk, to him telling me that he abuses me because I left him to go and see my grandmother dying, because he almost blamed my grandmother for it, and I wasn't having that. And it's just damaging, because I went back to see my grandmother and I went to her funeral as what any other grandson would do. Yet he turned it around and said that his abuse, his drinking was my fault because I chose my dying relative over him. That's the reason why I'm abused. I'm the reason why I'm being abused, not him. I am. And it's hard, and you do, and you hate yourself for a while, and try not to cry. I'm trying not to cry. I'm trying to think of a happy thought. It's tough. You hate yourself for a while. I hated myself for a while. I really did. Because I abused myself afterwards as well, I think. I think you sort of channel all that energy he did to you, to yourself. I was abusing myself. I was going out a lot. I was drinking a lot. I was doing other things I shouldn't do because I was so hurt. I was so damaged. I was so confused as to about what was going on. I had such a year where I left uni. I lost a grandparent. I then moved away from him. I split up with someone I thought I loved. And I get dealing with the abuse as well. And it's just, I abused myself for a good year afterwards. I went out a lot, like I said, and, it got to a point where I started a job last January when I had to move back to Telford. I started a job working at a logistics company, and I wasn't myself. I wasn't myself because I still had the baggage from losing a grandparent, but also being abused, because I didn't tell myself I was abused. I left him and I told myself that he was a dickhead and that he's this and he's that and I can do better. And I went on self-destruct mode. I wasn't a very nice person when I worked there. I probably gave off bad vibes because in my head, I was still coming to terms with the fact that I was physically and mentally abused by someone I loved. And I couldn't accept it. And I took it out on everyone else. And I gave off this vibe that I was this villain, that I was this stone cold bitch who didn't care about everything, because at that point in time, I couldn't care about anything because it would just break me. it was just so much easier to be a bitch, to lash out, and to really dig at people, and to really think that I'm something and that everyone else is beneath me. Because the reality is that right now in my head, I can't accept that I was hit. I was pushed against the wall. I had my head smashed against the cabinet, and I was told that the drinking is my fault. And I couldn't cope. And truthfully, it's the hardest thing in the world. It's the hardest thing in the world to get over, because you are with someone you think you love, and they love you, and they hurt you physically, and they hurt you mentally, and to accept that is you can't, because it breaks you. Because you'd like to think that they loved you, you'd like to think that they wanted you and only you, but to accept the fact that they didn't love you and they hurt you physically and mentally is so hard. But I was abused physically and mentally by my ex-boyfriend, and he didn't love me. And I convinced myself for so long that that wasn't the case. I told myself that, oh, he's just an alcoholic. He's not, he's an abuser. He abused me. He is an alcoholic, but that's not the point. The point is that he is an abusive person. He abused me physically and mentally. I made the excuse of him being an alcoholic. Oh, I dated an alcoholic. Oh, no, I dated an abuser. And when I finally admitted it to myself, the walls just started coming down gradually, because I was being honest with myself. And I think that's the sort of message, is to be honest with yourself, and to be very black and white. You know, I know people like to throw colours around and you know, say, oh, life's a rainbow, but sometimes life is genuinely black and white. A spade is a spade. He cheated on me with a 55-year-old man. He hit me. He drunk. He, you know, mentally scarred me. That, black and white. You wouldn't do that to someone you love. You can say that you love them, but at the end of the day, you don't consciously know that your boyfriend has a dying relative who's dying of cancer. You wouldn't knowingly say, my nan's dying, but cheat on them with the guy that you know your boyfriend is worried about. You don't do that to someone you love. And it took a while for me to admit that. You don't do that to someone you love. He didn't love me. He loved the idea of being with me, but a leopard can never change its spots. And he could never ever be anything else other than a liar, a cheat, and an abuser. And until he knows what he's done, or do you know what? I'm not going to say that. Until he goes through it himself, until he finds someone he thinks he loves, who he falls for, and who pushes him, punches him, spits on him, physically spits on him, cheats on him, he will never know what I went through. He can say that I know what I put you through, but at the end of the day, he doesn't, because he never felt the full force. He was getting drunk, he was texting, he was sleeping with his ex, he was going back to Bath to this gay bar and having parties. He was dressing up as his alter ego, Winnebago, as a drag queen. He was having it all. And it took me a long time to admit, but that's black and white. That's what it is. He was doing all that, and he didn't give a F about me. And that's the truth. And never again, I will never ever let anyone hurt me physically and mentally like I let him hurt me, ever. Ever. Because the damage that caused me last year is, like I said, I had the intentions to make friends. I had the intentions to, you know, move on, but I didn't accept it. I didn't accept what happened to me. So I gave off very bad vibes. I was being very self-conscious. I was being very bitchy, and it came off. And it was only until I admitted it to myself and, you know, really admitting it to yourself and going through everything he did and saying that happened and it wasn't your fault. And it's hard because it's easy to blame me. It was so much easier for me to say he was an alcoholic and it was all my fault. But actually, he is an alcoholic, but it's his fault. He's the one who picked up that bottle. He could, if I was such a bad boyfriend, he could have said, get out, leave. I don't want you anymore. I need to focus on getting better. Why did he stay with me if I was such a bad boyfriend? And at the end of the day, he loved abusing me. He loved it. I was his little puppet. And that's it. That's black and white. Because he used to make me feel so bad for leaving this life in Bath behind, Like I said, he had so many times when he'd go out partying with his fiance at the time. And they were the celebrities of Bath, everyone knew them. Everyone knows Durda and Durda. I'm not going to say their names, but everyone knows them. And he made me feel bad because he says, I've left that behind for you. You should be grateful. I could be there now with him. I could be at a party living it up, but instead I'm here with you. And this is how you choose to repay me. But that's his way of controlling me. And that was his way of controlling me. And it is black and white, like I said. No other way about it. That was how he controlled me. And it's tough, but I think since him, I found a love for myself, which I never thought I would, because looking at him, at the end of the day, look, like no one's life is perfect. And I don't want to say that my problems are worse than yours or yours are worse than mine. It's how we deal with it. And, I just left university. I was in this big wide world after being in a bubble for years. I lost a grandparent. I lost a job. After me and him split up, I went into debt. I couldn't find a job. I had to move back to Telford, which I didn't like because I lost my independence. I lost my home. And you know what? I thought to myself through the week, you went through all of that in a year and not once did you pick up a bottle of alcohol apart from when you went out with your friends. But not once did I go out at 5 o'clock and get drunk and lash out at anyone. I thought I faced my demons. I mean, I'm not going to say completely because like I said earlier, I went on self-destruct for a bit, but I never became an alcoholic. I never took it out on the people closest to me. I never did that. And I'm proud of myself for that because I never ruined someone's life like he ruined mine. And I will never ruin anyone's life like he ruined mine. And, that's one thing I found for myself is that I went through a lot of shit and I never went the way he did. I never went the way he did. And that's what I'm proud of. I had a lot more on my plate. Like I said, I'm not saying that his problems were worse, but at the end of the day, he moved from Bath to Cheltenham. There's worse places to move. He had a pay rise because he went to be a junior manager. Swings and roundabout. Like, I left uni. I left uni, had no money, grandmother passing away. He's moved counties. He's now got a better boyfriend because he used to tell me that I'm so much better than this 55-year-old. Moved counties, better boyfriend, better job, better pay. You miss your dog. And he was drinking every single day, hitting me, cheating, sleeping with other people. And I never did that. I never was abusive towards my friends. I asked for help and they gave me help. My friends know who they are. And thank you. You helped me a lot. and I never once took it out on them. And I'm proud of myself for that. I didn't become a him, and I will never become a him. Him as in H-I-M, not him as in... So yeah, that's basically it. That's, you know, sorry if it feels a bit disjointed, but I don't edit my videos. I want it to be as authentic as I can. So essentially, you're just going to see me sit down in my room on the floor, talk a lot of shit. I'm going to swear a lot because and I'm going to like stumble, and if I get emotional, I'm going to take a minute, just because, one, I cannot edit on iMovie. I may have a new iPhone and I may work in an office, but I cannot work technology for the life of me. So I'd rather just sit, talk my shit, and then upload it, rather than sit for about 2 hours trying to like join up the dots and be like, oh, let me put this in there and let me make it a bit quirky. But thank you. If you're still here, thank you for watching. And thank you for understanding. And, you know, like I said, I've had a lot of people message me saying that, you know, how brave I am. And I don't think I am brave. I think that I'm just strong. You know, there are braver people out in the world, and I'm not one of them. But it's noble to talk openly. And if you've ever been in an abusive relationship, or if you think you're in one now, give me a message, even if it's anonymously, because I've been there, I've done that, I've worn the t-shirt, I've got the spit stains, I've got the teeth, I had the teeth marks, I had the police report. I've been there, and I know it's not nice, but there is a way out, and there is life after it, and there's life after the tunnel. You know, there was one point after him, I thought I'd never get back on track. I thought I'd never get back to normal. I thought I'd never regain confidence. And I'm not saying now that I'm, you know, Beyonce walking everywhere, but I'm getting there. I'm working on myself, and I'm starting to appreciate me for me. And I mean, I'm not ready for a relationship just yet. That's not on the cards anytime soon. But, and again, that's something else to go into at a later date in another episode, is feeling rejected and not feeling loved. But that's something else. I'm not getting into that. It's part and parcel with everything, isn't it? But this is about being in an abusive relationship, and, you know, I've told you my story, and I've told you how it is and how I feel and how hard it is, and it's never going to get easier. You know, I can't... When did we split up? We split up 2008, August 2018 we split up, and then, you know, we saw each other once in the September, but that was when he dropped a suicide note through my door saying that's it, and me being the dickhead called the police and said, look, can you check on him because I'm worried about him? And then basically the police said, oh no, he was fine, he was having a few drinks with his friends. So there's that. So it's been over a year, and it'll be 2 years. Christ, it'll be 2 years later this year. It's not easier. It's still hard. I still do wake up some days and feel that I don't want to be here, and I don't like myself. I hate looking at my face in the mirror. I'm always, again, comparing myself to other guys, even older men. I'm just like, they're probably better than me because it's happened before. But you just got to stay strong with it. I'm trying to stay strong. I'm trying to work on it. It's not getting easier just yet. It's still really tough to accept and to get over, because those words always stick. Like, you know, the ugly, he used to call me a slag, ugly, and they just stick. They stick in your head, you know. Like I said, with physical abuse, you can get rid of it, you can conceal it, you can heal. But with mental stuff and words, they cut deeper. And especially when it comes from someone who loves you and you love them, you know, it's not nice. And so, yeah, I still struggle. I still have some days where I can't face it, and I get jealous, and I get anxious, and I get upset, and I get, you know, distressed about who I am and how I look. But I need to, again, keep on with the attitude that it's not my fault. What happened to me wasn't my fault. It was all on him. And all I need to do now is just keep on getting better, and I suppose one thing I've learned from him is to always be kind and always be honest. Like, I'm always honest. I won't tell a lie. Like, what's the point, you know? I mean, for example, recently I liked a guy who I went out on a night out with, and he's now seeing someone else. And I just said to him, look, I like you, and obviously you're seeing someone else now, which is cool. You know, I'm just honest, you know, because again, like, that took me a lot. It took me a lot. For example, okay, so for example, this guy who I went on a night out with and ended up coming back with, we texted for a while, and I did like him. And I thought there was a connection there, and I thought that, because I even said you can come around for a cuddle, and he was like, yeah. Anyway, turns out he's got a guy. Surprise. And it took a lot for me to say that to him, and to invite him to mine again, and because I'm always scared of rejection. Anyway, it's proved me right. Don't get me wrong, because I think he's now seeing this guy who he went out on New Year's Eve with. But it took me a lot. It took me a lot to sort of make the first move and flirt with him, because I had no confidence in myself. And I sort of took the plunge. I thought, right, I've met you once. You seem to not think I'm a complete munter. Maybe I'll go for it. Anyway, 2 weeks later, he's already got someone else. So that's a story for a different time. But yeah, it's just small things like that. You know, it takes a lot for you to come out of your shell a bit. Like, it takes me a lot more to sort of warm to people since him. You know, since my ex, it's taken me a lot to... Normally, I could just walk into a room and say, right, love, how are you? Apart from if I've had a few. But now I do sit and I do stare and I do sort of suss people out, which is something I need to stop. But yeah, that's one side effect it has. You do sort of don't want to trust people anymore. You don't want that shit in your life. You're just like, I'm going to do a whole FBI search on you now. But yeah, so that's it. That's my tale of woe. This isn't supposed to be like a feel sorry for me channel. This is just like a diary of what I've been through and how I'm coping. So if you do think I'm a bit of a whiner, and if you don't think I'm your cup of tea, well, tea is for pussies. Choke on it. No, this is just me sharing my story and me trying to get it out there, because believe me, I never said this before. I never came out. I never said I'm feeling low. I'd always act the bitch. I'd always act like I'm fine, but I never was. And I think since I've started this blog and since I've been started to talk more, it's sort of sunk in that actually I'm not all right and I need to change, and it's more therapeutic for me to talk. And if I'm helping anyone, and if I am actually reaching out to people, and people are genuinely, and don't just say you've watched it and you've watched the first 10 minutes and said, oh, haha, or well done. If you've genuinely watched this whole, I mean, it's 1 hour, 19 minutes. I mean, Jesus, I know I've got a big mouth, but I was only planning this on being a 40-minute video. But if you've genuinely watched all of this, I really would like to hear back from you and to hear what you think. And if anyone has a story they'd like to share about their health and how they're feeling, then please just talk. I think we all need to talk about this. Like I said, it's not just for gay people, you know. I personally, my story is I'm a gay man and I feel I struggle with my mental health and how I look, and, you know, I get the usual shit on Grindr that I'm ugly, I'm this, I'm that, I'll never get a boyfriend. And again, like I've told you, I get rejected, like I was texting a guy, but he's already got someone else, and how that affects me. But if you're a straight woman, if you're a straight man, if you a lesbian or a pan or whatever, if you feel bad, you know, there's always somewhere to talk. Like, I really want to know other people's stories, because I know, ask most of my friends, they will say I talk shit, but I don't. You know, I do. I've been through a lot, and I can help, and I'd like that. And, you know, anyway, I need to shut the fuck up, because I'm boring myself with my voice. Anyway, thank you for listening to my story, and thank you for listening to how I'm coping. And if you want to share your story, if you want to do like a Q&A thing, like, I think I might do like a Q&A thing. I don't know. Maybe episode 2 can be like a Q&A, like you send me your questions. Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, right. Say, I'll do a video next week, and it'll be like a Q&A. So if you want to message me anonymously, or on my Facebook, or on my Insta, or on my Twitter, just ask a question, and what I'll do is I'll answer them on my next video. Like, if you've got a question about how you cope with an abusive relationship, or how are you, even if it's how are you doing, that can be my next episode of Q&A. I think let's break up the topics with a bit of light-hearted entertainment sort of thing. Yeah, I don't want to go from like abusive relationship to feeling depressed to not feeling loved. Let's do like a Q&A for episode 2. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go now. God. Thank you for listening to my voice, and I apologize. Thank you.